She-Ra, She-Ra. Okay, yeah, I'm not a singer, and I won't even pretend to try to be one. But I am a huge fan of She-Ra, and I was lucky enough to be the brand manager of Masters of the Universe Classics, which involved She-Ra. This is Scott ToyGuru Neitlich, and welcome back to the director's commentary for Masters of the Universe Classic. And today we are going to be covering Her Royal Highness herself, Princess Adora, aka She-Ra, Princess of Power. And as I said in my horrible singing as I opened up this video, I am a huge fan of She-Ra. I absolutely adored the She-Ra series when I was a kid. I even stole my sister's She-Ra and put her with my Masters of the Universe toys. Quick aside before we jump into She-Ra, I'm well aware that this channel, Spectra Creative YouTube channel, is, well, let's say 98.7% male, and for the most part, 35 to 45-year-olds. But I want to do a quick plug for a friend because, pay it forward. I have a friend who has brought over an amazing hair care product called Avocados from Europe. And my wife and my daughter tried it, and they both swear by it, saying it is absolutely the most amazing hair care product they have ever used. And I wanted to give them a shout out and give them a plug. You may have a girlfriend, a wife, a female friend. It actually also works with males. I know, us men, action figure collectors, aren't huge into styling our hair, but you may be. Either way, I wanted to give it a plug. It's avocadoshair.com, and you can check it out. It's really an astonishing hair care product, and you could surprise, the girl in your life with something really amazing, especially while we can't get to salons. So it's a great hair care from home product. Okay, back to She-Ra. So, She-Ra used to be a doll, like literally a doll. That because she had rooted hair, right? That's how we define an action figure versus a doll. A doll has rooted hair. And we wanted to get her, obviously, into the Classics line. And a big reason we looked at doing that was because She-Ra was included in the 1987 Style Guide for Masters of the Universe. Now, her rights are definitely a little wonky as far as Princess of Power and Masters of the Universe. But the 87 Style Guide not only included She-Ra as part of Masters of the Universe, but it included her in her Filmation look versus the doll look of her original toy, which was a little bit different. The Filmation look is more iconic. And the Style Guide also included characters like the Horde, which, again, is wonky because the Horde were released in Masters of the Universe as toys in the vintage line, but then they appeared in the She-Ra Princess of Power animated series. Believe me, following the rights to Masters of the Universe will give anybody headaches. It's like trying to figure out time travel in an Avengers movie. But that Style Guide, not only did we get She-Ra and Hordak and all of the Horde, but we got basically all of She-Ra's supporting cast. And again, all done in their sort of iconic Filmation look versus the look of the dolls from the girls line in the 80s. And it even had, vehicles and, all sorts of stuff. So even unproduced vehicles. So it was a great guide for how we could translate them into Masters of the Universe Classics from the POP look. There was red tape, though, and it definitely turned out in the long run that until we got the Filmation rights, we actually weren't supposed to be doing She-Ra figures, but we kind of did them anyway. And it's one of those things like where you can't say, well, don't tell anyone because, the monkey's already out of the barrel, if you will. I think I just made that up. But we did She-Ra early on, and once we got the Filmation rights, we had full rights to do the She-Ra character, so we kind of, were able to clear that red tape in the end. But it was definitely a little wonky getting her into the line and doing her in that iconic Filmation look versus her doll look as a toy, which was a little bit different. In the long run, we actually talked about going back and doing the doll look of all the characters, but that would be, like a story for a 2017 or 2018 line. Interesting side note as we get into She-Ra, when they originally put her out, like all Mattel toys, they did focus groups on the doll with girls and boys to see what they thought. And Remarkably, all of the girls took the She-Ra mask and flipped it upside down. It was supposed to be, it was designed as it was on the right, as a mask, like, Batman, like covering her face. But the girls in the focus group, every single focus group, flipped it upside down and made it more of like a, around the head kind of thing with wings like that. And that's why it has those two little loops at the top, and that's why her iconic look looked that way. You can see this in some of the very early mini comics and some of the cross-cell art, that her mask is positioned as it was designed to be a superhero mask, disguising her identity as Princess Adora over her face, so you wouldn't recognize her. But hey, you got to make the toys the way the kids play with them, and since every single girl focus group flipped the mask upside down, that's the way they decided to make her. And the mask got flipped upside down, and it became wings on the side of her head instead of like the big kind of triangles heading up with them, and the mask part basically just got removed. Those little loops that were meant to cover her eyes, but you can see it in the original toy, and we definitely wanted to pay homage to this with the classics figure, and find a way to do this vintage look as well as her Filmation look. So here you see her with the, if you will, upside down mask, and then here you see her with the mask covering her eyes as Mattel designers created her. So yeah, it's one of those really weird, funky stories in toy history of how She-Ra got her look. But this is the way they imagined her, and that was kind of what Classics was all about. Was kind of paying homage to all of these original looks, like giving Man-at-Arms the furry shoulder stuff, and furry shoulders. In his armor he had like little fur in the cross cell, and Merman giving him the head from the cross cell. So it was the same kind of thing. But of course, we also wanted to give her iconic look, which was, if you will, a lot of fans call the Filmation look, or what I would call the '87 Style Guide look, which again, that was how we were able to sort of get access to the She-Ra characters in this style, was because of that style guide. I think if it didn't exist, we might have not been able to do this version of her at all until we got the Filmation rights. Like I said, it was red tape. It was crazy. But in the end, we were able to create a She-Ra that was hopefully going to work for all fans of no matter which look you liked, and we were able to come up with a way to do 3 different looks for She-Ra with only 2 heads. So we could have her mask over her eyes, her mask upside down, how she shipped and how girls and boys played with her in the 80s, and then, of course, her Filmation look. And this was done through a slot in her forehead. And oh boy, did this cause problems. I mean, to say fans went crazy over this is an understatement. It's kind of like every time we went above and beyond to come up with something to give back to the fans, it totally backfired. Whether it was, Robato's turning gears, or, She-Ra's removable mask, if anything in the entire line, I think this one just made me want to smash my head into a wall the most. I was just like, really? Are you kidding me? I get it. You want to be able to display She-Ra with no mask. But you know what? That wasn't the intention. We created a way to do 3 different looks. We created a way to do mask on, mask upside down, and Filmation look. This look, this custom look that fans created, that would have been another head entirely. And the reaction from fans was, oh my God, you're all sexist. You hate women. You drilled a hole in her head. That makes you all sexist, misogynist executives. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we're just trying to go the extra mile so that you could display her with her mask on, upside down, right side up, or Filmation look. It was literally us going the extra mile. You weren't supposed to display her without the mask. It would basically be like, like a Marvel Legends figure that comes with alternate hands, and pulling the hands off and saying, wait a minute, if I don't attach the hands, then my figure doesn't have hands. She was not designed to be displayed without the mask on. That's why the hole is there. It's covered up by the mask. I get that fans wanted a version with no mask at all, and you could put the Adora head on, or eventually we did do other versions of She-Ra and found ways to do a maskless head version. But for this one, The hole in the head was not us being sexist or saying we hate She-Ra. It was an innovative way of displaying the mask. Much like any other figure, like that Marvel Legends example I just said, displaying a figure without, accessories or without parts, pulling arms off and saying, oh no, now my figure doesn't have an arm. So you do have the bubble power She-Ra there on your left, which we did do a maskless version, but you'll notice how thick the hair had to be in order to hold the mask in place. We could have just done, just the Filmation look, absolutely, and just done one head and, been done with it. But we really wanted to go the extra mile and find a way to do the vintage mask both directions. So instead of just giving you, one figure with one head and calling it a day, hey, that's we went the extra mile, and that required a hole in her forehead to apply the mask on one of the two included heads. So it was not sexist. It was not because we didn't like She-Ra. We were not like drilling a hole into her head. We were trying to give you options. Speaking of which, you'll see she's packed out with the Filmation head down there below, and her vintage head with the mask turned upside down, exactly as she was in the vintage package. And we did this deliberately, one, to pay homage to the vintage pack out, but two, we knew eventually, or at least we hoped eventually, we would be able to get to both a Filmation line and or a movie year where we could bring She-Ra to retail, and we were saving the iconic Filmation head on the body pack out for a retail year when that figure would hang at retail. That way it would be different from the original Classics pack out, for fans that were now buying it again. So that's why she was packed out with her vintage toy head. Another issue we had was Swiftwind. So we knew we wanted her to be able to ride Swiftwind, and while the Horsemen did absolutely think of this from day one, excuse me as I cough into the microphone, it turned out that the articulation of the legs and the skirt thickness of the plastic didn't work the way we intended. So luckily, we had another shot at her with Bubble Power She-Ra, and we very, very deliberately made sure that that version not only could sit on Swiftwind, but Bubble Power Armor's She-Ra's armor was designed to be removable, and underneath was a more classic look. So really the idea was you could mix and match. You could take original She-Ra's cape, original She-Ra's head, put it on Bubble Power She-Ra's body, remove the armor, and now you had kind of a quintessential version of She-Ra that could sit on Swiftwind and even had more detailing on the gauntlets. So we definitely had that. That was long-term planning. We knew the whole idea of Classics with the removable heads and the removable armor was intentional, knowing that fans were going to mix and match. All right, next up for She-Ra, we have one of her accessories, which is a little interesting, the comb axe. What is that? So the vintage figure was a doll. It had rooted hair. She had rooted hair. And she came with both her sword and her mask and her shield and a comb so that girls or boys, but more likely girls, could comb her hair. So doing the comb as an axe was kind of a way of paying homage to the original comb and making it more of a weapon, because she was an action figure now, not a doll, because she had non-rooted hair. And now, along with Adora, we were starting to build up our Princess of Power world. So She-Ra's come a long way. A character that started off in the 80s as an addition to the boys line that was then kind of absconded into the girls division and turned into a doll and released by the girls group, and then later now brought back into the boys group and released in Classics. Look at that, how she just like bounced back and forth between different groups at Mattel. Who wants to have her? Everyone wants to have She-Ra. So this was the start of what was going to be the Princess of Power lineup, and eventually we did get to all the original characters. Not all the variants, but we did get to all the POP girls and Bo, the boy, and it was great to include her. She was definitely, in my mind, a very integral part to the Masters of the Universe.